Hi, this is Ellen from the Chili Dog, and today I'm making a tubular ear warmer like this one. So I'm going to show you how to do the provisional cast on that I used in the round with waste yarn. I'm using this cast on so that after I knit the entire tube, the final round of stitches can be joined invisibly with the provisional stitches that are cast on. And in case you didn't see it, hopefully you didn't, the join happens right about here. So to do this cast on, you'll need yarn, knitting needles, I'm using DPNs, but you can do magic loop if it's more comfortable for you, and a piece of waste yarn that's 3 to 4 times longer than the length of your cast on. And I like to use a wool-free waste yarn so that it doesn't accidentally felt as I work and it can be easily removed later. So we're going to start by making a slip knot with both the working yarn and the waste yarn. And just make sure that the tail is long enough that you can weave in the yarn later. Next, we're going to put the loop onto our needle and tug it tight. And unlike most cast-ons, this loop does not count as your first stitch. We're just making it to keep our cast-on stitches on the needle and our yarn tails out of the way. So hold your needle in your right hand, and you're going to position the yarns sort of like a slingshot over your left hand so that the working yarn is over your index finger and the waste yarn is over your thumb. So to cast on, you're going to bring your needle underneath the waste yarn, pull the working yarn under the waste yarn, and then do a yarn over. And I like to hold the front stitch of the set with my index finger as I work, just so that I can slide my stitches down the needle and also to keep the stitches from twisting around. So let me show you the motion again. Needle under the waist, working under the waist, and yarn over. Needle under the waist, working yarn under the waist, yarn over. Needle under the waist, working yarn under the waist, yarn over. Needle under the waist, working yarn under the waist, yarn over. And you just continue in this motion until you've cast on all the stitches you need. And for the project I'm working on, I need to cast on 30 stitches. But just for demonstration purposes, I'm going to stop right there and show you what we do next. So instead of dividing my stitches onto DPNs at this point, I'm simply going to turn my work and make sure to hold the working yarn and the waste yarn so you don't lose any stitches off the needle as you turn. So just turn. And now I need to knit this first stitch. But as you can see, the working yarn is just kind of dangling here over the needle, so I couldn't really knit it because there's nothing holding it at the bottom. So all you have to do is take your waste yarn, bring it behind your working yarn, up towards you and around the working yarn, and just hold it between your fingers. And then you can knit that first stitch. And after you've worked the first stitch, you can let go of the waste yarn. Nothing's going to happen from that point. So you would continue on knitting across all of your stitches, and you could either divide them onto DPNs as you go, or work all the way down to the slip knot at the end, and then divide your stitches onto your DPNs. And since it's kind of boring just to watch me knit stitches like that, I've got another sample ready to go that we can look at. So all I've done here is knit that first row of stitches. I started here, knit all the way around, divided my stitches onto DPNs, and now I'm actually ready to keep working in the round. But before I do, there's a couple things I need to do. The first thing I can do is pull out the needle from that slip stitch that's at the beginning. Just do not untie the knot quite yet. We're going to do that in a couple minutes. You also need to make sure that your waste yarn is positioned correctly and that your stitches haven't twisted around the needles. So all you have to do is follow your waste yarn all the way around, and it should be kind of on the inside of this triangle that our needles form. So here you can see the waste yarn is coming around all three at the inside of the triangle, and it hasn't twisted around any of the needles at all. So from this point, gently pull your yarn tails. Again, don't untie that knot yet. Gently pull your yarn tails so that they're facing you, and then you can go ahead and start working in the round. So I'm just going to knit across here, and you want to make sure that this first stitch is pulled pretty snugly. It can loosen up on you. So I'm just going to pull that snug. And technically, you could pull out the slip stitch anytime after you've knit the first stitch here in the round. But I'm just going to make things a little bit easier to see, I'm going to work all the way to the end of my first needle. And then I can show you how to untie the slip knot. So now that I'm to the end of the needle, we're going to untie that slip knot. And all you have to do to untie it is just take both of the yarn tails in your fingers and just gently pull, and the slip knot will come right out, and it's not knotted anymore. So you'll just continue working in the round until you have the tube. And you might find that when you get back to the join in between the last stitch and the first stitch, it might feel like there's a little gap in between those two stitches as you're getting started, but don't worry, because it will disappear when you graft the ends together. So just keep knitting in the round to work your tube. And I'll be back soon to show you how you join the stitches from the final round of your knitting with these stitches that are held on the working yarn right now. Let me spread it out just a little bit more. You can see stitches that are held here, and they'll join to the stitches at the end of the tube. So until next time, happy knitting!